Thank you very much. We will now go to the Honorable Mr. Kenny Stokes.
Thank you, Mr.
District five.
President. Mr. President, I want to thank you for being so patient that we have here. We have from fisheries and wildlife, I think we'll bring them first. Mr. President, Mr. Rich.
You will come to the podium, please.
And natural resources, that Mike, Mr. Dawson? Okay, all right. Mr. President, these divisions and process is doing some outstanding work. I want them to be going to the meeting in my office. And it's going to affect Hines County. And I wanted them to come, and they invited us to come. At a time when a lot of us had other obligations to explain what their plans are and let this body know what they're going to try to do in a collapse form, not too long. Thank y'all for being here. Introduce both of yourselves. Would you please introduce yourself, please?
Thank you. Thanks for having us today. My name is Michael Rich. I'm the project leader for the Theodore Roosevelt Complex here in Mississippi, which encompasses 7 refuges in the Delta. This is Mr. Mike Dawson. He's on our planning team. We just, on the 21st of November, we just concluded a public meeting, which will give you kind of a condensed version of what we gave them. And this is a proposal in the metro area for urban refuge, urban national wildlife refuge, which we'll get into a little bit of what that means if we get this thing up and going. And what we're looking for is if the people in the area want the Fish and Wildlife Service involved. Do they want us to move forward in this planning process? And that's what we are. We have some maps in the back we could have brought up with us. It shows most of the proposed area is on the Rankin side of the Pearl River. We have had some suggestions of moving the boundary, but those boundaries are just almost like a circle on the map right now. So once we get done with the process, we take all our public comments, we come back, then we'll have a more hard boundary that we can say. I mean, the eastern boundary is just an elevation line that we're going through. So
what's going to be included in this project in terms of fishing and work on the Pearl River with the Corps engineers that get involved in?
Yeah, this we've got a PowerPoint presentation, but obviously it isn't going to show on the
It's all right.
monitor up here. But here's some maps for you to look at. What this proposal is to establish an urban national wildlife refuge along this wooded floodplain that would go from the spillway at Ross Barnett Reservoir down to Lakeland Drive. And Seth, do you want to come up here and point on the map? The area, the first map that you see, you can actually see that wooded area. And for those of you who don't know what a national wildlife refuge is, there are certain protected places in the U.S. that are managed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. There's over 560 refuges throughout the country. There are 15 in Mississippi. Now, urban refuges are kind of a new thing. The first national wildlife refuge was started in 1903 by Teddy Roosevelt. Urban refuges really didn't start until the 1970s. And the first 3 were San Francisco Bay, what's the one at the Twin Cities?
Minnesota Valley.
Minnesota Valley, and Tennecomm in Philadelphia. Now this Tennecomm Refuge, which is now known as John Hines Refuge, has a lot of similarities to our proposal. It's within a metropolitan area. It's less than a mile from an international airport. And this refuge started with only 200 acres. Now it's 993 acres. It's got a visitor center, 10 miles of hiking trails, fishing areas, and it's all within access of public transportation. Now in 2011, this refuge, visitor visits to that refuge were over 177,000 people. And the total expenditures for recreation at that refuge was over $1.4 million. So these urban refuges bring a lot of revenue into the local area, plus it provides some jobs also.
Would it affect the lake project that's rumored to,
As we know what the One Lake project is, there's no conflict. We've talked to their consultant, and it is south of this proposal.
what about the Corps of Engineers? Would they have a role in this?
See, the way this project started is MDOT in 2009 purchased about 2,700 acres. Seth, show them where the green line is.
It's the interior section of this map.
And MDOT and Federal Highways acquired that land for a mitigation bank. Now they're not going to be the long-term steward. They're looking for somebody to manage the property. So they came to us and said, would you all be interested in it? And we've worked with MDOT before on these mitigation banks, and it's become part of the refuge. Now you ask the Corps of Engineers. The Corps of Engineers is involved in this mitigation bank. They have to approve it, which they're in the process of doing right now. And so what our proposal is using this MDOT property as the core area, we're proposing a refuge of about 5,000 acres. And you see on that yellow line is the proposed refuge boundary. The blue area at the top is land owned by the Pearl River Water Supply District. And we've talked to them, and they said, you know, they would be glad to cooperate with us on some joint management because they're looking for somebody to manage their property too. The red area is a 16th section that the Rankin County School Board owns that's leased by a hunting club. And then at the bottom, the orange area down off, that is LaFleur's Bluff State Park. So this is a proposal. We're in the process of doing a land protection plan and an environmental assessment, which will go out for public review and comment. It's still just a proposal at this stage. No final decisions have been made. And when the environmental assessment comes out, there'll be a range of alternatives.
But it'll stop at Lakeland Drive, is that correct?
Yes, it'll stop at Lakeland Drive. That's our proposal at this point. But now during this environmental assessment phase, I mean, people could recommend, well, it needs to be just the 2,700 acres, or it needs to be more than 5,000 acres. It needs to go on the other side of the Pearl River and include some of that floodplain in the Jackson area.
But this would have no effect on the One Lake project.
As we understand it now, it would not. See, the One Lake project, they've not come out with a formal proposal. You know, they're still working on it. But like I said, we've talked to their contractor, and he said that they're going to be south of Lakeland Drive. And it would have they could coexist, is what they were saying.
You're Mike Rich, right?
I'm Mike Dawson. This is Mike
Oh,
Rich.
you're Mike Dawson, okay, you're with them.
I live in Clinton. I'm a contractor, but I work with Fish
U.S.
Farms.
Fish and Wildlife Service, Mike, right?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Could y'all leave other cards? I have some cards, but members of this body might want some cards. Thank y'all so much. We have an idea now.
Okay.
And we know what to do.
I
Yes,
did
sir.
want to answer your question you asked earlier, what kind of activities? On a refuge, we try to have 6 activities we try to allow all the time, which is hunting, fishing, photography, observation, interpretation, and education.
Free fish.
All wildlife.
Is it free fish?
It's free fish, that's,
Okay, all right, because a lot of times, they start free, the next day they start charging, but thank you so much.
no problem.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you very much. And